The U.S. Forest Service finalized rules prohibiting logging and road building in nearly 60 million acres of the country's last remaining roadless areas.
And 3 days after that, Boise actually went to court to file a lawsuit to stop that.
This banner was hung in downtown Boise, Idaho on the eve of a hearing on Boise Cascade's suit against the roadless policy. When all was said and done, Boise Cascade's lawsuit defeated the popular U.S. roadless policy. Activists named Boise Cascade the top enemy of the U.S. forests.
It actually showed their true colors, and it made it possible for us to prove to the public that Boise actually, despite saying they weren't going to log old growth, they still weren't an environmentally conscious company.
Soon after, Boise Cascade and its allies, feeling confident, were able to initiate a congressional briefing in Washington, D.C. to label RAN as an eco-terrorist organization and demanded an FBI investigation.
So we responded to this counterattack by getting 20 people arrested at Boise's headquarters in Chicago for office products distribution, including Bonnie Raitt, John Densmore, the drummer for The Doors, Julia Butterfly. The other folks were the executive directors of a number of NGO nonprofits.
We believe that Boise Cascade Corporation, their old growth logging operations, and their trading of old growth around the world makes them an American disgrace. Their operations are barbaric, and their anti-environmental campaigns, their efforts to stifle free speech, are a disgrace to America.
We're taking back the earth, and we're keeping our right to free speech.
As long as old growth trees are falling, as long as animals are going extinct, as long as people are being polluted by a toxic environment, we are not going to stop.
I advise you that you're trespassing on private property at this time. I'm going to ask you to please move yourselves to the other side of the banner, otherwise you'll be facing arrest.
Movement's answer to the persecution of any one of our nonviolent organizations fighting for justice.
We're going to commence with the rest.
We're sitting here to make a statement. We're doing it non-violently. We're going to cooperate because we're showing that an honorable tradition of civil disobedience is the tradition that we stand for.
And I think that we really turned a key corner because after that, the harassment stopped. Boise stopped trying to contact our funders, and in fact, within a few months, by March 2002, Boise had committed, which was a little weak in our book, but Boise had committed to stop logging old growth in the U.S. This wasn't quite what we were looking for from Boise, but you know what? This is more still today than any other logging company has done.
The beginning of 2002 didn't look very good for Boise Cascade. Students from all around the country were getting involved in the campaign. Indiana University students staged a call-in day, asking the state to refuse contracts with Boise Cascade. RAN sponsored a Portland student gathering, training more than 30 university activists to run successful campaigns to cancel their university's contract with Boise Cascade's office products.
A lot of student actions actually on their campuses or in their communities, and so they're fun and they're creative and they're vibrant and they're young and they're edgy, and so people did anything from dressing up like Santa Claus and going down to their local Boise distributor and saying, hey, all they want for Christmas is for the protection of these old growth forests.
More demonstrations were mounted outside of Boise's annual general meeting, informing Boise's stockholders about the company's bad business practices.
Rainforest Action Network is out here today to send a message to Boise Cascade Seattle customers, Microsoft, Eddie Bauer, the University of Washington, and Washington State, that by doing business with Boise Cascade, they're in the business of old growth destruction.
Do you remember George? RAN kicked off a nationwide tour with George, resulting in extensive media coverage like this front page article in the San Francisco Chronicle. George, the Boise dinosaur, also made appearances and entertained both kids and the media in Seattle, Portland, Dallas, Atlanta, and Chicago. A federal appeals court in San Francisco reinstated the Clinton administration ban on road construction in nearly 60 million acres of U.S. forests, overturning the preliminary injunction obtained by Boise in March of the previous year. The U.S. roadless policy is considered among the most significant land conservation measures of the past 100 years and protects 60 million wilderness acres from commercial logging and road building. Called the most popular federal policy-making decision in U.S. history, the roadless policy generated 1.6 million letters from citizens across the country, 5 times more than any other policy announcement. 95% of respondents favored the strongest possible protection. October 29th, 2002. During a national day of action against Boise, more than 60 groups of activists converge upon Boise's largest customers, like Blockbuster, Borders, Eddie Bauer, Cornell University, Brown University, Kent State, and the University of Illinois. Activists unfurled a 3-story banner as timber executives exited a 1-hour Boise presentation.
Boise was giving a presentation at NALA, the North American Wholesale Lumber Association. It's a gathering of 650 big industry players, loggers, distributors, manufacturers of wood products. And Boise was giving this talk on how to greenwash your image to the public.
You're aware of the whole old growth forest issue?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. Here we have a flyer about it if you'd like.
Thanks.
Sir, you can't even be filming either. Lady, you want to turn the camera on, please?
Following a second year of public shame and lost contracts, Boise sent to RAND a draft of an environmental initiative and finally requested a meeting. RAND joined more than 50 protesters outside Boise's annual shareholders meeting to demand that the company stop buying old-growth wood or wood from endangered forests and that they end their legal assault against the popular U.S. roadless policy.
We had to argue with Boise about every little tweak and phrase and words, and it was hard. It was really hard work. I have that policy memorized as a result of the negotiations, but the feelings when we got to the end of it were like, great.
After 8 months of negotiations between RAND and Boise, Boise released Boise and the Environment, a landmark private sector commitment to forest protection. RAND called off the campaign targeting Boise and declared a victory for the forests.